Today marks the 434th day of the Israeli genocide on Gaza. We are here today to remind everyone that those 46,000 we have lost are not just statistics, but names and human lives with dreams and hopes and days cut short. The brutal onslaught on Gaza continues day after day, with 50% of Palestinian children now hoping to die. What if these were your kids? What if they were your families? I am here to ask why Palestinian life does not have the same worth and value as ours. This vigil today is for Hind Rajab and the 14 long and telling pages of children martyred by Israel. It is for the health workers and those deliberately targeted by the Israeli occupation force in an effort to prevent any rebuilding of society post-genocide. This is for all those who were suffering with grief since the Nakba of 1948 and those using all the willpower in the world to survive this genocide and protect those they love. So please join me in welcoming my first speaker, a long-standing health worker and activist, Lynn Hubbard.
I think it's so important that we're here today showing our solidarity, which will not end as long as the struggle in Gaza goes on. I think the situation in Gaza, it is beyond belief. When you look specifically at the situation in health, there's no doubt that Israel has targeted the health service and tried to destroy it. In May, there were 500 dead health workers. Now, the most recent report says there are 1,116 health workers who have been killed. The UN now says there are only 17 out of 36 hospitals that are partially functioning. And there's no doubt that the IDF has targeted hospitals and health workers actually in a way that is quite different to any other conflict. And I just want to give you some examples. So in August, the Red Crescent reported how the IDF had specifically destroyed all their ambulances and then had arrested and detained 8 emergency crews of paramedics. At the Al-Awad hospital, the IDF went into the hospital, stripping, tying up and interrogating all male patients above the age of 16. Now that's a known. That's so brutal. We know right from the beginning of the conflict that cutting off power has meant the premature deaths of people relying on ventilators and of premature babies. And the IDF have knowingly done that. The Lancet in May reported that the level of malnutrition was so great that many surgical operations, which would have actually meant the patients survived, meant that because patients had such poor immunity and didn't heal, they died of infection and sepsis, a painful, slow death. They also died from the lack of just basic wound care dressings. This is cruelty in the extreme. And they also reported the return of polio, which had actually not been seen in the Gaza Strip previously. But I want to conclude with the testimony of Dr. Nassim Mahmoud, who actually is a retired surgeon from Guy's and St Thomas's, where I used to work, and like many health workers, went over to Gaza to try to help.
The first thing was really a complete sense of shock.
What did you see? What did you smell?
You see a landscape that looks as though it reminded me of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Devastation, buildings reduced to rubble for miles around, as far as you can see. Nothing growing, no people, a few looters here and there, but nothing.
And he's very experienced in going to war zones. And he reported on his return to a special parliamentary committee. And he was visibly had to stop at various points in his testimony as he was so distressed.
What I think I found particularly disturbing was that a bomb would drop maybe on a crowded, tented area, and then the drones would come down and...
Please take your time. I can only imagine just how it has impacted you and will continue to impact you. And I feel, because you can't unsee what you've seen.
So the drones would come down and pick off civilians, children. And we had description after description. This is not, an occasional thing. This was day after day after day. We had 1 or 2 mass casualty incidents every day. And that meant 10 to 20 dead, 20 to 40 seriously injured. Now, a hospital like Guy's, where I used to work, Guy's and St Thomas's, might get 1 or 2 a year. We had 1 or 2 a day. And 60 to 70% of the people we treated were women and children.
He said he didn't leave the hospital for 2 months because the MAP accommodation had been targeted by the IDF previously, so it wasn't even safe for foreign health workers to stay in that accommodation. But he described how every hour bombs went off. But the most terrible thing was that after the bombs went off, the drones came, and people could hear the humming of the drones. And the drones then shot civilians with these cuboid pellets. And much of his time there was spent trying to save particularly women and children's lives from these pellets. The Labour MP interviewing him had the audacity to say, "Are you sure they were children?"
I'm sorry to do this, draw you a little. You say children. I wonder if you could tell us sort of the ages of the children. And you say that they said that they were lying on the ground from a bomb shock. Do you believe them?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, a 7-year-old's not going to make up a story.
Do you think they've been told to say that's what happened to them? He was really, really upset and disgusted. And he said normally in a conflict zone, and he'd worked in Rwanda, and his friends had worked in the Ukraine, he said that most of your casualties are people on the front line. But there is no front line in Gaza. There are just 1.4 million people who are trapped. And that's what makes the conflict even worse. The fact that health workers from the UK continue to go to Gaza and try to operate and help the people of Gaza is testament to the humanity that we can still show one another. And it's so important that the work we have done locally to raise money for medical aid for Palestine, which continues to try to keep those hospitals going and to give people in Gaza hope. But more than that, we are beginning to see sanctions being effective as a result of our mass protests. And this week, Al Jazeera reported that actually Australia had disallowed the entry of Israeli soldiers into Australia following the ruling by the ICC that this is an illegal genocidal war. So people are starting to say, we have to stop this. And I think that is a good sign. We know the boycott is hitting Barclays and other companies. And we know that every single time we protest, we give Palestinians hope that they will never be forgotten. Thank you.
Hello everyone. As I always like to say, it is very important that we are standing here and we are standing in solidarity with the people in Palestine. Thank you to all of you. I hope you feel very, very proud. So I want to start my speech and I'll read a poem, and I'll start it off by saying, so while we are preparing for Christmas, while people are walking around and buying Christmas, doing their Christmas shopping, they're buying things to put on their tree. They're thinking about what meals to prepare and what gifts to give their children. The children in Gaza are being bombed. They are stuck under rubble, and many, many children are starving. As we have already we spoke, 50% of children wish to die. And we need to know that 50% of Gaza population is children. It is unbelievable. We need to remember that Jesus was Palestinian, and if Jesus was born today, he would have been under rubble. If Jesus was born today, he would have been starved. If Jesus was born today, he would most likely be orphaned. If Jesus was born today, he would be bombed and he would be starved. And we need to remember this. The state of Israel, the terrorist state of Israel, is killing Palestinian children. It is recorded that 17,000 children have already been killed. And this is only the official estimate. The unofficial estimate says it could be over 35,000. We need to remember that while you are shopping, bombs are dropping. While you are shopping, the bombs are dropping. While you are shopping, the bombs are dropping. While you are shopping, the bombs are dropping.
I hope my remarks now kind of fit the occasion, because we're standing here in memory of 4 members of the Sadala family in their home in Jabalia, of the 52 killed by Israel in the last 24 hours in Gaza, of the 36 killed in the targeted attack on a shelter for displaced Palestinians in Nuseirat, including the targeting of 3 schools sheltering displaced people, of the 902 at the last count, entire families killed over the last year in the Gaza Strip. We stand in memory of 5-year-old Hind Rajab, murdered with her entire family in a hail of rounds fired from an Israeli tank. We stand in memory of Dr. Saeed Judah, killed on Thursday, travelling by ambulance on his way to work, the last orthopedic surgeon left in Gaza, a grandfather who'd come out of retirement, targeted and killed by a quadcopter drone. In the wake already of his home having been destroyed, of his nephew having been killed, and the week before his son also having been killed. We stand here in memory of every one of the confirmed 45,000 Palestinians murdered in the past year, of the 90% of the population displaced, often many times. According to Oxfam, the death rate of civilians in Gaza is the bloodiest of any war in the past 24 years, and probably longer. But I don't think we just stand in memory. We stand in testament to the resilience, the determination to survive and resist, not just over the last year, but over the last 3/4 of a century and more. There's an Arabic word that the Palestinians always use, sumud, and it means resilience, to survive. And yes, we stand in grief, but also in solidarity. And we stand in resolution and determination. We will not be silenced. We will not stop the protests. We demand an end to complicity. And personally, I also refuse to give up hope, because I believe that walls can fall. The walls they erect, we have the power to tear down. Free, free! Palestine! Free, free! Palestine! Free, free! Palestine! From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!